Welcome, everybody. We're going to record the meeting in case there's some people that weren't able to make it, or you guys want to review the information later. But good morning. Thank you so much for being here. We are here for our 2024 service provider agreement, the new contracts that are, most of you guys are starting January 1. So we'll review some information, just make sure everybody remembers what we went over last year. If you went through this meeting last year, just kind of do a refresher. And if there are some people that are new, please know that you can ask us questions. You can pop questions in the chat, or reach out to us later too, if you feel like you have a lot of questions. But if you've not, please take a moment to sign in. We'll have Megan, do you mind popping that link in one more time, just to make sure that folks who just joined have it? And we'll do a quick introduction. We have the Ready by 5 team. I'm Heather. I'm Heather Boswell with the team. And do you guys mind just saying hello? And there you go.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Christine Temple Larson, your Senior Funding Administrator.
I am Kathy Cortez, Financial Accountant.
Hi. Good morning, everyone.
Go ahead,
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. This is Julia Smith. I am with Baby Scholars.
Thank you, Julia. I'm going to also introduce Megan and Kiana with the First Steps Ready by 5 team.
I'm Megan Strang. I'm Communications Director for First Steps.
And I'm Kiana Garcia. I am a Funding Administrator with First Steps Kent.
And just want to put Kiana on the spot a little bit. She's our newest member of the team, just started last week, and will be taking over many of the contracts that Kyle did and a few that Christine did. We're shifting portfolios around a little bit. So just when you get a chance, welcome her and give her a shout out and hello when you get a moment. We thought we would ground a little bit. We're entering the final year of this millage in 2024. Many of you were here, but if you were not here back in 2018, this millage passed 57 to 43 by quite a margin, making Kent County the first county in Michigan with dedicated tax dollars for early childhood services. And it really builds on this long history in Kent County. If you've been around a while, we've known that our Board of Commissioners and our county administration really has put some priority on making sure that we're more preventative and making sure that we're serving our children and making sure that they're healthy and ready for kindergarten. We're also part of a movement here nationally, and we don't talk about this very often, so I just thought I would bring it up here in helping us remember why we're here. And we have a video that our partners at the Children's Funding Project put together. This is talking about this national movement that we're part about, and I thought I'd just take a moment and share it. So.
All across the country, everyone, whether you live in a small town or a big city, wants to live in a strong and vibrant community. The only way to do this is to ensure that our community's children have a strong start in life. Since 1946, through good times and bad, communities across the country have created voter-approved children's funds to secure the best possible outcomes for their kids and pick up where federal and state funds fall short. A voter-approved children's fund is tax revenue that voters decide must be spent on services for children. These funds identify their community's needs and pay for a variety of services that children receive outside of the K-12 school day, such as programs for babies and toddlers, childcare, preschool education, after-school programs, and mental health support. Local communities maintain 50 voter-approved children's funds across 11 states that generate $1.5 billion annually for kids. These programs receive wide support from all sorts of people. Mayors, business leaders, faith leaders, law enforcement, childcare providers, and families have all championed voter-approved children's funds. And they work. Communities with voter-approved children's funds see positive impacts on infant development, kindergarten readiness, high school graduation rates, children's behavioral health, lower youth violent crime rates, and higher youth employment. Voter-approved children's funds are also good for business and the economy. The services they fund create jobs, increase home values, and prepare children to get the most out of public education. Children's funds can help our communities build a resilient and diverse network of services that lead to positive long-term outcomes for our kids. Are you ready to create a children's fund in your community? Visit childrensfundingproject.org/children's-funds to learn how.
Just a little bit, like across the nation, this is happening, but here in Kent County, we were one of the first, and we should be really proud of what we've been doing here and hope to continue. And we will into 2024. So we'll kind of talk about what we are, how we're defining this in Kent County. So a lot of the services across the nation, they have different focuses, but here in Kent County, we're following Kent County's vision for early childhood services, that every child will be healthy and ready for kindergarten the day that they walk into their kindergarten classroom. That we're focused on our youngest children, ages 0 through 5, and expecting parents. Parents will have increased access to resources of information, more support for parental health and well-being. More children are developmentally on track, and children live in healthy and safe home environment that's free of environmental concerns. So how are we knowing that we have an impact? We want to remind everybody that the Ready by 5 evaluation is well underway. This will allow us to understand how services are impacting families in Kent County. Basis Policy Research and Advancing Communities for Equity are our third-party evaluation team. And they have secured data share agreements with all service partners, as well as school districts, every school district in Kent County. What they are doing is they are connecting Ready by 5 service data to school district assessment data for each child entering kindergarten to determine how funded services impact kindergarten readiness. And then a benefit analysis of these services will be developed. This is really important to know. This is why your data submissions are really important. This is why your quarterly reports are really important. We'll kind of get into these a little bit, but just so there's understanding of why we're asking so much of this data, we're building the case to continue this funding and showing that it is effective and it is having impact here in Kent County. I also just want to put a little bit of a plug in for Discover Day. Our Ready by 5 evaluation team will be here. They'll be in town on November 15th, and we'll be presenting some of the findings from year 2 midway. So encourage you guys to attend and sign up if you haven't done that yet. But we'll keep moving along, and I will hand it over to Christine.
Hi, everybody. So over the next several slides, I'm going to go over requirements that you're very familiar with, and I'm also going to highlight a couple of things that are a little new for us for next year. So let's get into it. As you know, every year we update the service provider manual. The service provider manual has everything that you need to learn a little bit more details about your programming, financial reporting, and organizational requirements that we have for all our partners. And I just want to remind everyone, we are in the middle of updating that version. We will get it to you early this December. And so we're going to have that posted on the Millage portal. We're also going to make sure we include the update in the e-news. So hopefully we'll get that to you soon. If you have questions about that as we go through the contracting process, we can always review some of those requirements in the manual as well. So one of the first highlights in the service provider manual that we have for next year is we did update the insurance indemnity section. You want to pay close attention to the employee dishonesty coverage. We've increased the limit a little bit there, so just note that. Typically, in the back of the service provider manual, you'll find cost share worksheets and appendices that has a little more information, and we're going to have that sliding scale updated. For all of the service attributes, for all of the program categories that have been funded next year, that section has been updated. And we also provided some clarity in general over some policies. We really take your feedback into consideration. So we've kept that in mind as we went through the whole manual again to see if we could provide any more clarity for you. And our next highlight for next year, we do have training requirements, as you know. Family Futures and HealthNet will be providing training. So Family Futures will be providing the Healthy Communities training, and HealthNet will continue to offer the supervisors learning and care model training. We just want to note that funded staff through the millage are required to go through the trainings, but if you have equivalent training that you completed within the last 12 months, just know that we can waive that, and that's something that we can look at during the annual assessment process. And again, the millage portal will have updates and information about the training requirements, and we'll also make sure you have that in the e-news as a reminder. Okay, so this map might look a little bit familiar to you all. So through our data collection process, we have been able to determine which children in the community are getting services they need and where we need to direct more resources. So you all know we collect the demographics, family income, and geography data, and that's what's reflected here. This map is showing how we use that data. The 6 zip codes in blue are high opportunity zip codes identified in that 2020 to 2021 analysis of communities with high economic disadvantage and significant potential for expanded services. So collectively, the whole millage, all the service providers have been able to increase participation in those zip codes by 55%. So that's pretty a big deal. In green, the communities identified are those with remaining high unmet need. And the ones with the stripes that you see there, there is some overlap in the zip codes. So the blue again, that priority focus 2021 to 2023, green is the priority focus in 2023, 2025. And as you remember, proposals for this latest RFP round draw attention to rural communities where we need to see a growth in services. Okay. As you recall from previous quick meetings, our quality improvement consortium meetings this year, we have continued conversations about parent satisfaction and their participation in your various services that you all are providing. So we are going to implement the recommendation of an acceptable and ideal response rate for parent satisfaction feedback and surveys. For our November quick meeting, we just want to note that we will share the standardized questions that we are asking all providers to include. And the recommendation, and we've had conversations, if you recall, a survey link provided during or after services is going to be the recommended approach to this, to accomplish this. And we are going to implement this beginning March 1 of next year. So again, we'll have continued conversations in a couple of weeks when we see you all at the quick meeting. Now this slide also should look a little bit familiar. We were able to gather from our 2022 data that the outreach and navigation providers, partners, the feedback surveys have been gathered at a 31% from all of the parents served. Early learning, 3%. Parent education and support, so home visiting, 25%. And then our healthy development at 8%. So these were those survey responses that we've talked about previously. And this is part of the information that informed that previous slide that we shared. And another focus for next year is, we can't emphasize enough that we need that complete data from everyone. But I want to draw attention for the healthy development and the parent and education support and some of the outreach and navigation, if it's applicable to you, the complete ASQ screening and referral data. We're going to look into that a little bit more. I see you, Rachel. I got you 1 second. And then the complete referral data for the healthy development, healthy and safe home partners. Good morning to you all. We want the referral data to show successful connection essentially to environmental resources so we can address the concerns that you've shared with us. So we'll look at that. And again, we can look a little bit more into this if you have questions when we do the contracting process. Rachel has a quick question I think we can do. Does that replace the quarterly feedback surveys, or are we doing both? You know, Rachel, I think we'll have to talk about this in the quick meeting, but it might be different for folks. I know that you all have been submitting the parent survey feedback in the quarterly reports to us over the year. So if that is something that you can continue to do, that is probably what we're going to just have you do, and just continue to report quarterly. But as your standard process, we just need to make sure that we're getting those responses. Okay. Sounds good, Rachel. Thank you. All right, reporting requirements. Not much is going to change. You all know we have you submit the invoices every month, and that we also have to have that child and expectant parent data submitted every month. Just a refresher, we're going to make sure that we have current data share agreements between First Steps Kent and the health department. So we're going to take care of that during the contracting process as well. And that each data field follows that specific format that you'll see in the file definition document that has been updated. And also that's going to be reflected in the data profile draft that gets sent to you along with your contract draft. So I just want to plug that in there. Program specific outcomes and updates are going to continue to be submitted in the quarterly report on that quarterly schedule. This image in front of you should look familiar. This is something that you've seen in the RFP and we've included in the past in other presentations, but essentially it's just a snapshot of when different things are due. Just to note for our friends and partners that have an indirect service defined in your contract, that monthly data submission, demographic service, and referral files don't pertain to you. So it's a little bit different for those contracts, but for the most part, this is something that everyone's going to follow. All right, we're going to have everyone update their budgets as part of the contracting process. If your program was recommended for a different allocation than the original request, we're going to ask you to adjust your budget to fit that amount. If your recommendation allocation remained the same, you still can make minor edits in EC Impact. And specifically for healthy development and FEMUR, and I think the translation folks and the training budgets that we have, we as First Steps Kent staff can go ahead and work with you and do that for you because it's only one line in the budget. So I just wanted to remind those contracts about that. And don't forget, when you're in EC Impact, to mark your work as complete and to hit that submit button, because sometimes if you don't hit that submit button, it's still viewed as in process or we don't get to see it. So make sure it turns green when you submit your budget. And changes that you might have, maybe from the time that we did, you submitted the proposal and after the award process, every change must be in the scope of the original proposal. So please keep that in mind. The goal for contracts that have that January 1 start is we'd like to have everything in EC Impact by Friday, November 17th before midnight. That's going to help Katya and I a lot, and Kiana, as we try to get these all executed. Okay, and just another, what, can we go back one more slide or back a slide? Thank you, Heather. Just a reminder, in the contract, you're going to be able to review your staff position titles and expenses, and you want to have that reflected in your scope, but also make sure we have that reflected in the budget that you submit in EC Impact. So just wanted to draw attention to that. So if there's been changes, contingencies, anything like that, let's make sure those job titles match and those positions match in the contract and in EC Impact. Thank you, Heather. Just as a reminder, program costs to consider. These are just things that we want to draw attention to routinely. So your direct staff costs, wages, fringe, and benefits. We always like to ask that rhetorical question, are staff wages a livable wage? That's something that's very much in tune with the Resident Proposal Review Board when they're looking at the applications, and something that we look at over the years. Costs that are related to screening tools, something to consider for that, because I know many of you have assessments and screening tools for your families. Technology, as you all know, qualifying purchases only include property costing less than $1,000 per unit, or unless we specified otherwise in the RFP or the contract. And make sure you remember to think about your materials that you use to promote your program. I know some of you have some great marketing that you want to get out there, but let's just make sure that that's something that you are considering when building your budget for direct costs. All right, indirect. So this year, the Resident Proposal Review Board had some recommendations, and the priority really is on directing funding to direct program expenses and immediate indirect, back office, administration, etc., that support the program described. So in line with that, the president, executive director, CEO, and executive leadership lines may not be included in your budgets. What could be included, now these are examples that you're familiar with from our EC Impact process, data support time for monthly data submissions, scheduling and planning of direct staff time, your marketing and comm, any financial time to help track expenses and submit that monthly invoice, time that we spend together in the next month to build those agreements and sub-agreements, and of course the IT, HR, and all other backroom support. Quarterly reports will remain in EC Impact to that process, so you submit that and our quarterly schedule, April, July, October, and January. That's when you report your program-specific metrics, any updates, and we just want to remind everybody we don't need the identifiable data in the quarterly reports. We can't have that in there. So just a reminder about that. And then also, I will attach, Kiana and I will have attachments in your contract with the report schedule in the back of the contract as an exhibit. So you can always refer to that as well. All right, quarterly reports. It's not going to change much from what you're familiar with now. Numbers served, encounters, your SMART goals, any narrative that you want to share with us about timeline and budget variances. Again, I want to emphasize that slide that we talked about previously, parent satisfaction rate. We'll continue that conversation in a couple of weeks in the quick meetings. Any staff changes, please let us know. Training that funded staff have attended, quality improvement initiatives, and please continue to share family success stories. We really are looking at that, especially at this point in time because of the millage renewal. So Megan and the communication team, they really appreciate those stories that we can share. And that is it. So I'm going to hand it off to Heather and she's going to go over data.
So monthly data submissions, just and a quick note too, if you are translation and interpretation, FEMR, Fetal Infant Mortality Review Network, or Training Network, this information does not pertain to those contracts. So don't worry, but everybody else, and I think most people here are pretty familiar with the data submission guidelines. There's the monthly data submission guidelines that you can find details in the file definition document. So this provides the technical standards and there's a code book in there as well. And we have a file field definition. It gives more context and some additional details around what the fields are, what fields are required for what programs and services, and some additional information. There were some updates that went into effect on December 1. So please make sure that those have been or will be implemented. I guess it's not December here yet, but if you have questions about that or not recalling what those are, please reach out. And then we will have the most current version of all these on the millage portal. They'll probably go up after the next quick meeting. So early December, we'll have those officially posted. But a little reminder about the monthly data submissions, how we use this information. We use it to reconcile invoices and track performance. We use it to track utilization of services, and it also feeds into the Ready by 5 evaluation. A couple reminders too, because we'll sometimes have situations where people or programs will come to us and say, hey, our count is larger than yours. If you submit individuals who are over the age of 5, so if they're age 6, 7, 8, they will not be counted by the system. They won't be counted if they're not residing in Kent County, and they will not be counted if the data that you submit is not fully submitted. So it's really important just to kind of do a check on what those requirements are in the documents and do a little bit of a refresh as you're refreshing your contract for the new year. So how to know that your program's data is being submitted correctly? Because we have so many different programs and everybody's doing things just a little bit differently, we do want to honor that. And we have set up the system so it can flex a little bit to these variances that we have among programs. So within your contract, you will have your custom data profile. Please take a moment to review this. This is put together by us based on our understanding of what data you are submitting and what we're expecting to see. If there is something that you absolutely never collect, or maybe there are fields that you do collect that should be submitted, this is the way that we'll be able to kind of be on the same page in terms of what will be coming in from your program. So again, this will be attached to your contract draft. And also it's important to know that we'll be pulling this out during the annual assessment and kind of verifying what fields are submitted. So a bit of an overview of the Ready by 5 data sharing process as well. Just what's happening with this data. There is data, your program's data, is submitted to the Kent County Health Department. So the families are coming in, you're collecting their demographic information, you're collecting information about referrals if that's relevant to your program, and you are collecting information about the services that you provide. So as that information is coming in, it's really important that the service provider is disclosing how the information will be shared and used by Ready by 5, because you guys are kind of the front door here for that data collection. So if families consent, their information will be sent to Kent County Health Department. And this is where the Ready by 5 data warehouse is. So everything that you guys collect, all of your demographic, all of your service, it is all housed there in their secure environment. And it's maintained according to the health department standards as well. So information can be requested from Kent County Health Department, like all of their data that they house. They do have a data request process. So through that data request process, First Steps Kent has requested that we get key fields. So we are getting everything about the services that are provided, and we're getting some demographic information, but we are not housing on our systems any of the identifiable data such as name, parent name, address, and those identifiable pieces. So the consent piece is really important. If you think about the door 1 to door 2, what we mean by getting consent is there is a consent, there's consent language. And this is language that should be integrated somehow, ideally, into your very first enrollment. I know that some agencies have had to work it a little bit differently, but ultimately the outcome needs to be that before any information is sent to Kent County Health Department, that you have secured that consent. And it's an acknowledgement also that families understand that their information is going to be sent to Kent County Health Department. It discloses where data is being sent from there. So it discloses that it's going to be used for evaluation purposes. It collects consent for service providers to offer ongoing referrals as needed. And it offers an explanation of how consent can be canceled. So another thing to note, if you go into the service provider manual where this can be found, it's a little bit different for each type of service. So as you are kind of copying and pasting it, you'll want to make sure that you are tweaking it to match your type of service, because the fields that we collect for play and learn versus home visiting are a little bit different. And the consent just acknowledges the fields that are collected for each specific program. The other thing is it can't be modified. We need to know that consent is happening across all programs in the same way for legal reasons. So there's just not a way for it to be tweaked and modified program by program. And in the data instructions, if you do have situations where families just do not feel safe or do not want to have their information shared with the Kent County Health Department, there is a way to send information about them receiving services in a way that does not disclose who they are. So there's very specific directions in the data standards for that situation. So the other piece with this consent process, there's a privacy notice, and this is available on our website. The consent kind of gives like a quick snapshot of how the information is being used, that at least makes families aware of how their information is going to be used. But there is this much longer document that's called a privacy notice that gives additional details on how a family's personal information may be used. So it gives information like how data will be stored, how it'll be shared with Kent ISD, how it'll be shared with First Steps Kent, how it will be used. So if there's additional questions, this privacy notice is available. It's available on our website. And we ask that you make it available to the families. The other thing to note that this privacy notice may be different from the privacy notice at your organization. So it will not replace the privacy notice at your organization, but can be used in addition to the privacy notice. So the final piece with this data agreement and data arrangement is, in order for agencies to share data, there needs to be a data agreement in place. So with the annual contracting process, we include data agreements and just send new ones to make sure that there's data agreements in place that are current at all times. And there will be 2 agreements. There will be one for First Steps Kent, and there will be a second one for BASIS for the valuation purpose. So this is the document that gives the terms of how information will be shared between your organization, Kent County Health Department, and First Steps Kent. And there are 2 types of agreements. So there are BAA, Business Associate Agreements, and these are specific for service partners who are covered entities under HIPAA. So a lot of our healthcare systems tend to fall under there. So if you are a covered entity, we will ask that you submit a BAA. If there's one in place, we're going to have you review it for accuracy because it's boilerplate language, and we'll just do a refresh on that. If you are a non-covered entity, you will submit a different document. It is just a data agreement. So if we're going to ask that you guys verify that each program verify what type of agency they are. If they are a covered entity, we'll have you do the BAA. If you're not a covered entity, we'll have you do the standard data agreement. Also, if you've not had your legal counsel look it over, many of you have, so it has not changed. But if you've not done that, please do that. And also know you only need to submit one or the other. You will not be submitting to both, depending on what type of agency you are. So finally, once you determine what agreement is appropriate, here's the process to submit. It has Kent County Health Department's name on it. So some people assume that it just needs to be sent to Kent County Health Department. We're going to ask that these specific BAAs and data agreements, please send them to First Steps Kent. We've set up a routing method to be more efficient, and we'll send them specifically through that routing process. All right. So it was mentioned a few slides back that the data would be used to reconcile invoices and track performance, as well as utilization of services. So in order for this to be done, we need to identify the way that all services will be counted in a standard way. So one program to another program, we found that everybody has a different way to count things or categorize things or use different definitions. So through the contracting process, we'd really like to take this time to make sure that you are counting things the same way we're counting things. So we have these four different definitions of how we count things, and they'll vary a little bit depending on what kind of service and program that you're falling under. But an overview of all of them, we have the individual served. So again, this is only individuals that live in Kent County. and meet the expecting parent or age 0 through 5 requirement. We have the number of encounters, and this is submitted through the service file. And these are going to be determined by each program model. So we'll walk through that in a moment. In addition to what's happening, we're also it's being requested that we share information about how universal are kids getting screened with ASQ, or what is happening, or what are the needs with the social determinant of health screening. So we are tracking what is happening with those screenings, and we're also tracking the referral data for a few types of programs as well. So we'll kind of walk through these a little bit. The direct services, we will be used, these will be used to track contract performance. And it's important to know that if your numbers are falling 10% or less below where you should be in the year. So if you're 6 months in a 12-month contract and you are not quite meeting that 50%, you'll be asked to explain why. And we've realized, you know, some programs, they kind of ebb and flow a little bit. You have busy seasons and less busy seasons. So if that's typical for your program, we need to know that. But we also need to know if there's a program that's falling behind as well. So using that standard, we'll kind of be able to see where programs are and understand what's happening. So please give us a realistic goal is the other thing we want to say in your contract. So the individual served, this is pretty much how many people you intend to serve. It gets a little bit tricky because you have the direct services, and sometimes you have multiple children in a family. So if you are direct services, so you're doing a one-on-one type of encounter. So this would be a home visit, or this would be maybe a clinical session. You will have one target child per household. So if you have more than one individual child that is enrolled and you're delivering a one-on-one service, like 2 siblings both receiving individual counseling. So let's say child number 1 comes in at 10 o'clock in the morning for their appointment, and child number 2 comes in for their appointment at 10:30. You could count them as 2 different kids because they're both getting a different encounter. For no-one referrals, this is the other type that we're counting by individuals who get at least 1 referral. You will be, if you are working with a household where there's multiple children getting 1 referral, there should be a target child identified. So if you want to talk through this, I know I'm thinking of different services and this is going to look a little bit different. We're happy to talk through that, but just know that it's really important that we understand how you're counting children and that you understand how we need you to count children. So when we get down the road, we're able to understand how the contract is performing and things aren't off because counts are happening in different ways. The other thing that we had mentioned was encounter units. And this will be provided program by program. So this should be based on realistic estimates. And there will be 2 types of encounters depending on what your program is. And you'll see it in your contract. So you'll know which one you need to be thinking about. So there's the direct services. So your example, again, would be like your home visiting program. You're working one-on-one with a child, or your clinical type services. So we'll want you to just think about how many encounters an individual will serve. So how many home visiting visits will a family receive? what's prescribed by your model, how many are required, what's the appropriate program dosage. Just kind of think about these different factors to figure out how many, based on how many individuals you'll be serving, how many services each child or expecting parent will be receiving. So we'll do an example here, and this is a very simple example, but let's say there's a program that defines an encounter as a scheduled 90-minute clinical session. And in their contract, they have said that every child in this program will receive at least one session once per month for 3 months. So 90 days in, there will be 30 children that will be served, 30 unique children, and there will be 90 services, 90 encounters that will happen. So in the monthly data submission, we would see in the demographic fields, 30 individual children and data filled out for them. And we would see fields for 90 encounters in the service file. So there'd be a date, the kind of service it was, and the other information that's required in that field. We realize that there's a lot of communication and things that are happening in between services. So let's say in between home visitings, there's phone calls that are happening. There might be an email that's sent, some follow-up. We don't need that information. We just need the information about the services that you said you would provide in your contract. And that's how progress will be tracked. All right, Kathleen, I see your question. So there's a couple of services that are being counted by referrals. And this is specifically our outreach and navigation, as well as our healthy development niche family supports. So it's a little bit different because you are counting based on how many individuals will receive at least one known referral. So this will be different than the individuals served. So it may be less even. You may have quite a few individuals that have signed up for the program, and then they've decided that they didn't want a referral, or they never called you back, or there's a number of things that can happen through these type of programs, and it's pretty typical for that to happen. So what's really important is to look at what's happened historically in your program as you're thinking about your numbers. How many individuals have received at least one referral? I'm going to move into an example here. Some animations. So with this referral, we have kind of an example here where I need to move some things around my screen. Parent A, there was a number of meetings that happened. They did a screening. They had a lot of conversations about the different needs that the family needed. So a referral plan was developed with the parent. It provided information on food resources. They collected consent to send information to the home visiting program. The next day, the parent called the program to notify staff that the preschool was not needed. So the referral plan was updated. So there was an indirect referral done to early childhood education preschool, and they confirmed that it was not complete because the family said, I don't need it. And that's completely fine. And that would count as at least one known referral. So the individual would not be counted until some sort of outcome happened with a referral, if that makes sense. So indirect referrals. So if you are translation interpretation, FEMUR, training network, this information does pertain to you and does not pertain to the other contracts. Individuals served in encounter numbers are not required for these contracts. And it's also not required for you to sign a BAA. We will be working with you to set quarterly goals for the quarterly contract, and we'll be asking for some documentation that the staff time that is paid for by these services be tracked as well. Okay, are there any questions? I saw Kathleen. Maybe we'll take those now while we're fresh into the slides.
Okay, well, my question was regarding the number of individuals served, and because what I think I'm hearing today is different than what we've been doing, in that we've always tracked by child. And so if a caregiver comes to a play group with 2 siblings, both siblings are signed in and then they are both counted. Are we supposed to be tracking by family instead of child?
So that is a great question. And, you know, we need to add a column for group services. I realized if you guys are doing group services, you guys can count multiple children, just because that's the way that your model is set up. So yes, thank you for calling that out. And I also want to know, I know it's really confusing because we're trying to cover so many different things for so many different services. We are going to delve into this a little more during the November quick meetings as well, just kind of do a quick refresher on these. So you have a couple options if you want to reach out to us and talk through your individual program. Please do that. We want to make sure that we're setting everything up right from the beginning here. And then we also will, you know, delve into this a little bit more service by service in the quick meetings. We just, for the purposes today, wanted to make sure everybody was aware, hey, there's these kind of different pieces, and it's really important that you're looking and making sure that you understand how the mechanics are working. So then we know that that we're tracking things as the year goes along. So thank you, Kathleen. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I'm going to hand it off to Kati.
Thank you, Heather. So things that you need to be aware of is your spending period. Services must begin on the contract start date to ensure you will spend funds as awarded. And the goal is to have all programs spend all funds while providing a consistent level of services through the term of the contract. And due to the transition of the county fiscal year, First Steps Can will use these formulas to estimate if monthly spending is on track. So for contracts starting in October 1st, 2023 through September 30th, 2024, we'll use the 1/12 of the award. And for contracts starting on January 1st through September 30th, 2024, we'll use the 1/9. And the reason we are using this formula is to make sure the agencies are in track of their spending, because if you are consistently spending above this amount, you probably run out of funds before the end of your contract period. And on the other hand, if you are low in spending, funds may be reallocated to another service through the reprogramming process. And you can see the service provider manual for additional information. And finally, funds cannot be carried over from one fiscal year to another. So here you can see how we track expenses, which is actual cost divided by annual projected, and that will give us the percentage annual spending today. You will be required to provide a narrative in the quarterly report to explain why there is a deviation of 10% above or below of the 1/12 monthly amount if your contract is for 12 months, and 1/9 if it's for 9 months. You may invoice for amounts higher than your 1/12 or 1/9. Just be aware that you don't want to spend most of your funds at the beginning of the year, as we talked before. And that's how we use this metric to identify programs that may be overspending or underspending. So here's how the reimbursement is going to be. Services are reimbursed on actual cost or according to a fee schedule up to the total amount awarded for the year. And some services will be eligible for additional performance-based payments, and all budgeted expenses included in the service provider agreement will be fixed for the term of the agreement. So here you see the invoice template, and that's how you submit your invoices through Easy Impact. Here's an example of the reimbursement template, which most of you are familiar with. This template is based on the budget that you submit in Easy Impact. And in this example, you see the column highlighted in yellow. That's where you will enter your monthly expenses by line item. And the template will keep track of actual expenses year to date and percent spent for each month. As a reminder, be aware of, as you enter your monthly expenses in the reimbursement template, make sure that the individual lines are not exceeding the 100% spend before the end of the contract. Otherwise, you will have to request budget transfer from other lines in the budget. And finally, you can also make adjustments and attach any documents and make any comment as needed in this template. Next slide is performance-based contracts. Here's how services will receive payments. Fee for service dollars paid on actual cost based once the service is provided and invoiced each month. And then we have the milestone, which are payments additional to fee for services, and they are based on the extent which providers is able to achieve predetermined programmatic milestone consistent with quality implementation and fidelity to its program model. And only certain services will qualify for those, and you can refer to the Ready by 5 service provider manual for full detail, and also reach out to your funding administrator if you have any questions. So now next is Megan. We'll go over the next slides.
All right. We get to talk about communication standards. So we have a new dual logo. Kent County got a new logo maybe 6 months ago. So our new logo is the one on the right there. So this dual logo needs to go on anything that is made possible by millage dollars. And this includes, but not limited to, any publications, brochures, documents, PowerPoint, social media posts, website articles. And there's 2 things to note about the new logo. Just make sure it always has that supported by the Kent County Ready by 5 millage underneath it. And don't stretch it. If you need a variation, it's a pretty new logo that I made. So if we need like a white version or a black and white version, just let me know and I can create one. We do have a Spanish version of the logo uploaded to the village portal as well. And then there's little shaped logos on the bottom. Yeah, thanks. Those are meant to be additional qualifiers so parents can know what to look for when they see the Ready by 5 village. They know it's part of the network. And these are meant to go kind of in the corner, like on that top example, a corner of a brochure or graphic. Let's see. So in the millage portal, you have all these communication standards. And there's a few more things in there I wanted to point out. There's some key messages on how to talk about the millage. So the Ready by 5 millage provides dedicated and sustainable funding for programs to improve the health, school readiness, and well-being of children age 5 or under 5. Sorry, 5 and younger. Yeah, I had it right. So there's some examples like that of how you can talk about the millage if people ask and if you want to put in any articles or anything. And then when you're referring to Ready by 5, make sure you do the Ready by 5 all spelled out, and then Ready is capitalized, the B in by is lowercase, and F in 5 is capitalized. And then there's some things that are a little trickier, like how to talk about how your program is funded. A lot of times it's really tempting to say it's a free service because it is free for parents, but we need to make sure that the taxpayers get credit for voting for this millage. So there's some examples of how you can talk about that as well, but Our favorite example is this program was made possible because of the generosity of Kent County taxpayers and the voter approved Ready by 5 millage. So that's our favorite, but I'm always around just to, if you want to run anything past me. There's also in there some expectations as a grantee and like some hashtags and a boilerplate for press releases. But yeah, please run by any press releases by me before you send anything out. I'm happy to help with that. Let's see, I think the next page is the millage portal. So I mentioned this a few times. It's just a good spot to go for anything you may need. If you want to click on that link now or later, but it has the EC Impact login. It'll have the new service provider manual. It has underneath that how you sign up for provider network news. So I'll get into that next, but there's training and education, a calendar, how you do the translation services. It is all on that millage portal. And then the next one is a weekly communication that goes out. And this is the provider network news, we call it. And this comes out mostly on Wednesdays unless something happens. But it just includes any changes that you need to make or anything you need to be aware of for that week. Look for those. And if you don't have those coming to your inbox, sign up on the millage portal using that form. And passing it over to Kiana.
All right, everyone. As we get through the contracting process, bear with me as I am still learning and I grow with First Steps and you guys. The next steps for contracting purposes is looking over contract language, the number served and number encountered, how you budget and how you budget for staff positions, your timelines, the required data fields that we use to submit, your specific program goals, your cost share responsibilities, and make sure to sign any data share agreements or amendments that we have sent out. And any questions that you have regarding contracts, make sure to reach out to Christine or myself, schedule a 30-minute meeting, and we can go over how to proceed. Our contracting timeline that we've set up, November 10th is our anticipated first draft date. So we're hoping to have all of our contract drafts out to you by then, with revisions complete by the 17th, and hopefully having sent them out to you again by the 1st with an approval date of December 11th so that we can officially begin contracts on January 1st. The final 2024 provider manual is still being updated, but it should be provided to you in December. And if you have any questions on that, again, reach out and let us know. And all of that will be on the millage portal as well. For the new portfolio assignments, Christine and I have gone ahead and split up everything. So I will be taking over the healthy development and outreach and navigation, while Christine handles early learning and parent education support. So we'll be your contacts moving forward for that. And I believe each of you have received our my information as well. So feel free to reach out with any questions or anything that you might have. As far as quick meetings, our quick meetings will be sent out soon for the following year, so watch out for those. These are for program managers and data managers that are currently funded by Ready by 5. The quick goals determine collective strategies to improve reach and or programming. Review your Ready by 5 evaluation results to learn how your programs are having an impact and how to use the data to improve program delivery, and to build consensus of standards and definitions for Ready by 5 data submission. just be on the lookout for that time frame for the quick meeting. And thank you to those who welcomed me. I saw your messages.
Thank you, Kiana. I just want to add a note back to Kati's slides about expenses. I just want to remind everybody that we use EC Impact as a invoice reimbursement mechanism. And the reason why I bring that up is a reminder that it is not your budget that's updated in real time. So we really do count on our partners and your financial teams to really watch your budgets. Again, that 1/12, that 1/9 is really important. But just to pay attention to those lines and those amounts that you have, just so you know that you're on track, or if you just need to be more aware about if you're about to overspend during that term of the contract, you just got to keep tabs on that. EC Impact doesn't update, again, real time, meaning when we open a reimbursement cycle, let's say, for example, you've requested a budget transfer. The budget transfers have to be approved before we open a reimbursement cycle. So you won't see that even updated when you request it right away. It pops up the month later when we open the reimbursement. So that's just an example of why we don't want you to lean on it as a budget real-time tool, just because of those purposes. There's lag time, things don't go through the way that some of you may have thought it did. So thank you.
Thanks, Christine. And we'll open it up if there's any other questions.
I just have a quick question about the care model. Once you go through the course, is it like a one and done, or is it different courses along the way?
Yeah, I won't speak for our HealthNet partners. I can't see who's here, or if Christine's here or someone's here for their place, but the way that we understand it, is if you've gone through the training series already, you've completed it, we're not making you take it again, if that's what the question is, for next year. It's for next year, staff who haven't taken it yet, if they're, depending on your new budget, if there's new staff that you've onboarded or someone's been moved into a certain role and they're now in a capacity to supervise, for example, then they are more than welcome to go ahead and sign up for it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we are working on updating on the millage portal, more information about who can take, who cannot take the courses, just kind of some reference, like a couple grids and that type of thing to make it more easy to understand who should be in the trainings and the new training that's being added as well. So that should be up. We're really working to get everything up by the end of November. So we should have that up in the next couple weeks.
One last question. I have a team member. I want to make sure I'm guiding her right, but maybe you can answer this. Where can she sign up to get the newsletters? We have a new team member on board.
Yes, Megan, you wanna?
Oh yeah, right on if you click the millage portal, or if you can find it, you have the EC Impact login, then the most references, and then sign up for the news. So it's right there. There's a form on the millage portal.
On the millage. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
If you have questions that you don't want to ask in front of the group, that's a little more tied to your program specifically, The First Steps team can always hang out for a few minutes if you want some one-on-one time with us now, or we always have time to schedule, especially since we're going through the new contracts with you all together individually. Lindsay, great question. We're going to typically, Megan, we put these in the e-news, I think, right? Or we will upload it to the millage portal link. I can't remember.
I don't
Both.
remember either,